Hi, it is Marie here from Skeinz, and welcome. I'm actually looking at this, and I'm really hoping that it's all going to be okay because I'm just noticing that my oh, there we go, network quality. She's back. The network quality.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Now it's gone again.
Oh,
Oh,
maybe you're
how
gonna fade in and out like
I
a
think
beautiful
we might
perfume.
fade in and out. It's saying the network quality is a little bit heebity jeebity, and this is a hardwired connection. So I apologise to everybody if it is a little bit fidgety at your end. You're with the Skeinz Diaries. I'm of course Marie. Today's Thursday, 4th of June, and day 7, and I have Ethan from Outlaw. I know it seems like forever.
Oh, it does. We went from weekly chats to
I
this. It's
know.
There are some things I could definitely stand to bring with me from lockdown.
I know. Our
I'm just saying.
Saturdays went. I miss our Saturdays, but
I know, but
it's
at the
this
same time, I enjoy the lion.
true. I did. Yeah, to be fair, everybody, I would get Ethan out of bed for for the quarantine diaries. He literally would arrive moments before we would go live, freshly showered and coiffed and all ready to go because we just heaved him out of bed.
Much like
It's
this
all right.
morning, but it's because I
I
came back
know.
from the gym and then I rushed. I showered. I prepared myself for the day. I moisturized. If you've been here before, you've heard me talk about this. It's a long, terrifying story that no one really needs to go into detail on. And yeah, then I make it here. It's a
Yeah, you
blissful
do.
thing.
And of course you're at HQ, you're at Outlaw HQ, because we're back to
I
normal working
am
life.
because we're
So
semi reopen. So I've been kind of, I don't know if anyone else at home or even yourself has been taking every excuse possible to leave the house. Like someone's like, oh, I need a Q-tip or a cotton bud from the store. And it's like, I'll go 1 second. Don't, you stay there. You don't worry. I can go do this errand. No problem. But that has been my lifestyle for sure for the last little bit.
yeah.
And we are open today from 12 till 2, which has been really nice to be back in the shop a little bit. So,
Mm.
you know, just enjoying the change, easing
Yeah,
back into things. I'm not rushing. I don't know. Everyone at home, feel free to let us know, but I am rushing absolutely nothing these days. It's like, took 45 minutes to do something. Meh.
yeah. Well, I called in to see the crew before I came back here, and of course, we had our final birthday promotion with Big Bull Bonanza on the weekend. So everyone that did order over the weekend, thank you so much. The support was just so overwhelming. Honestly, it took them all day Tuesday just to pick the items. And Heather and Damien, so there were three of them picking on Tuesday, which was just Heather, Damien, and Claire. And then Heather and Damien they are like the Uber warehouse dream team. They're amazing. So they have been just absolutely banging it out the last couple of days. So yeah, so thank you to everyone that gave us huge amounts of support. It's just awesome. And good morning, everybody. It's so good. And I am noticing a few Americans in the house this morning.
Hi.
I know Becky is from Minnesota, and we've got Patty that's just joined from Illinois, plus all our wonderful regulars. So there you go. They'll be getting a little bit we've got some North American love today.
It's always nice to hear from my fellow North Americans.
I know, it is so good. It is so good. So we're going to kick off actually with Starflanket because of course we talked about Starflanket
Yes.
all through Quarantine Diaries. It was a work in progress. It was something that we adored and love. And have we got a reveal?
It's finished, and I've actually, as everyone does, when you finish a really large project, what do? You immediately cast on a second one because that's the same decision, right? You're like, I loved it so much, I'm going to do it again. So, while this will never fit on camera because it is the largest thing known to mankind, there is an entirely finished. There is an
There it is.
entirely finished Starflanket in Bohemia Worsted now in everyone's life for you to see and enjoy. And I'm not going to pretend not a single end has been woven in, okay? Let's be honest with each other here. Have
No,
I been
this is outlaw tradition. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. This is outlaw tradition.
Look, everybody's lucky I'm not 3/4 of the way through the I-cord bind off still with the needle stuck in it. Like, this is already a massive step forward for mankind over here. But yeah, you know what? it was quite a journey of knitting. I really didn't feel like it took that long, to be honest with everyone at home.
Yeah.
If you are someone who's been considering this big boy or its smaller cousin, the Starflake, it is really enjoyable TV knitting. There is a lot of garter stitch, a lot of stockinette stitch, just a few little pockets of a very simple lace that you have to do. But once you're through, really, the stars themselves in the center there, I'm not sure how well this is showing up on camera because I can't both show it and be on camera simultaneously.
Yeah.
Once you're through the star portion, it really is just the simplest knitting to get through. I really, really, I can't recommend it enough. Like Stephen has over the years had some real hits.
Yeah.
Speckle and Pop is one that I think of that was a really great, and he's had some interesting ones. The
See, the
eyeball
doodler,
shawl.
I mean, I knitted the doodler, but the doodler is something, it's not very wearable. Um,
No, the doodler is a really beautiful exploration of techniques
yeah. Yeah.
that I think has kind of, that whole shaping structure has kind of culminated in
Yeah.
this idea in a
Yeah.
way. If you've knit a lot of Stephen West shawls, he does describe his books as shawl evolutions, the third
Yes.
book especially.
Yes. Yeah.
And you can really see the progress that's
Mm.
happened in his approach because a lot of his early work I would describe as abstract and expressionist, but
Yeah.
not particularly wearable.
Yeah.
And then I think his first shawl that I really think of as wearable is Glacier Sweep. And then Clockwork, because I might be listing these out of order, but
Mm.
y'all can live with it. Google is your friend. Um, then you really have Dotted Rays,
Yeah.
which came out and is really beautiful, but unless you make the absolute biggest version, is absolutely unwearable.
And also too Spectra as well. So I knitted Spectra, which was very
Spectre,
early on,
yes.
which was that red because it was before
Yeah.
the shawl thing really hit and people were still doing a lot of scarves. But he
Mm-hmm.
introduced that really simple wedge short row,
Yeah,
which then expanded into all of those other shawls. So it is, I think
completely.
evolution is a really good, description of it.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, if you are familiar with his shawl Sereno Symphony, which has a very similar shape, except it uses massive, like octuple yarn overs in it to make the big, giant eyelets. The Starflake and Starflanket, this whole promontory here, or
Yeah.
peninsula, it's like a knitted peninsula, everyone. This whole knitted peninsula section is completely born out of that shaping from Sereno Symphony, and then he brings it into this one. And he's really gotten a lot better. Excuse Me for me is probably still one of my favorite projects to make. It's a
Mm.
big, giant brioche, asymmetrical creation that makes absolutely no sense the entire time you're knitting it. And then you bind it off and you're like, oh, this was a terrible idea. But then you put it on you're
Yeah.
like, oh, it stays on. Why does this weird amorphous shape do that? And the reason is he's gotten a lot better at using more organic shaping that really fits to the body. Because while I think we can all agree that a half pie shawl is very easy to knit and can produce a spectacular visual result when you're done, they are the least wearable object known to mankind. They don't stay on. They go every which way unless they're slightly asymmetric, in which case then it'll hold onto one shoulder while leaving you nude on the other side.
Yeah.
And, it's just definitely one of those things. I think if you really want to indulge yourself in some glorious knitting, you do need to think about the Starflanket.
Yeah.
And to wit, I have dug into Deb's yarn library, which, much like yours, is expansive and spans many bins and eras. And for all of you who don't know me personally, I am an avid collector of rare yarn. I have probably one of the most obnoxious stashes of special editions you'll ever meet. But I'm not one of those people that hoards it. I buy it and then I use it. I'm super guilty of this. So I dug into Deb's stash and cracked out some old Bohemia worsted colors that are tragically not with us at the moment. You can get a fairly good approximation of this color palette if you love it, sitting there watching from home. I am using Tourmaline, which is still available in Bohemia Sport, but you could easily replace this with Fog.
Yeah.
to get a very similar effect. Tourmaline is a beautifully changeable color that, depending on the light around you, shifts from a soft greenish gray to a kind of effervescent blue.
Mm.
And I am using Valentine, which I am a big sucker for pink. And you could definitely replace this with Enchanted and get a very similar effect. Valentine, I would say, is just slightly less intense
Yeah.
and lets the brown of the possum shine through a little
Mm.
bit more. As per usual, Esam has done his usual witchcraft on the yarn. I'm not sure what deal he made with what deity to get these powers, but I would like to speak to whomever is in charge of that because
Well,
they
and
did a
it's
great
also
job.
nice. See, the nice thing with colors, like, I mean, Valentine, I love Valentine. It goes with my lipstick. I love Valentine, but it's a great color because the nice thing about colors is we don't, with all of these, they get libraried. So, Deb and I have talked
Mhm.
about this a lot, and I do it all the time with ranges. I'll bring colors back. In fact,
Yeah.
Perrindale would be a really classic example. I bought a color back in Perrindale called Pine, has not been in the range for nearly 20 years. It was there 20 years ago. But, so colors don't necessarily always go away. They just sometimes go on hiatus and holiday
Yeah.
for a bit. And then, you can always bring them back. And it's about, I think, context, context with
Mhm.
colors. And at the moment, I'm loving the rich saturation and warmth and depth of the colors that Deb has in the range at the moment,
Me too.
particularly with color work, with contrasts, like what you've done with Starflanket. To
Yeah,
me, that just screams nautical. I love it. Love it,
that
love it.
was that was definitely the goal. I was aiming for a nautical salute to New Zealand, to be
Yeah,
honest. I think I landed on the money.
yeah, it's
Um,
gorgeous.
it's a really fascinating thing, especially with the Bohemia worsted line, because you can create so many different unique palettes because the colors aren't straight up the middle.
Mm,
A lot of colors that we experience in our daily life are kind of out of that 10 pack of Crayola crayons that we all started with as kids. And I think it's because, you're exposed to them so much. People use them in a lot of advertising. Lately, I think we can all agree, everybody has been doing a lot of bare white with like little tiny lines of black. And it's like, we get it. You all read the same article on BuzzFeed of how to make a
mm,
logo. Congratulations, kids. But I'm really into the unusual color combinations, kind of playing with the ideas of, modernizing historical color combos, right?
mm.
So taking something as simple as what I've done here
Which
with
is very Kate Breton in its styling. Yeah.
exactly. And the whole idea behind it is kind of to evoke that, like, Martha's Vineyard,
Mm.
East Coast
New England.
of
Yeah.
North America and England and France, that whole palette. But when you look at it as a whole with the star in the center and you really see the gray coming through in the brioche, it does give you that little bit more of a New Zealand flavor because it's a straight up color combination. But by adding in Wreath, which has that incredible effect of being both blue and gray simultaneously, it pulls the palette to a different place. And
Mm,
the straight gray in navy becomes almost like a white. The fog
mhm.
reads much more white than it usually would. And so I really just, I don't know, I love it. And I mean, I'm clearly a bit of a classic color combination human being as I'm standing here wearing, you know, parchment and nostalgia. So, like, I definitely have a palette. But I think for me, um, this is kind of evocative of that sort of, jazz era,
Oh,
Gilded Age,
yeah.
softness.
Romantic.
Yeah, and that was kind of the idea behind this is to take that beautiful pre-Gilded Age
Mm,
jazz sort of sensation of multiple muted colors that are highly contrasting while not being bright and
mm,
putting them together. And so that's what I'm going for here. I was definitely heavily inspired by some of the Australian 1920s fashion houses that used a lot of these sort of prints in these
mm.
two colors together to make ladies' day wear. And I think that that's kind of where I'm at color-wise at the moment.
Oh, no, it's gorgeous.
You
Now,
know,
we have a question from Lynn, and she's wanting to know the cost to make the Starflake and the Starflanket. Now, you had some kits made up for both. So what were those? I can't quite remember the costs on those.
we did have kits, and they did include a small discount. The kits are all finished at the moment. You can, in our Baby Bandit range, though, make a Starflake shawl for $66 if you're not local, plus shipping with our courier. But it takes 3 balls of Baby Bandit in each color. So the Starflake is one of the most reasonable to make large shawls I have ever come across in my entire time knitting. It's fabulous because it's built for solid colors. So it does incredibly well with our commercially dyed yarns, which I actually think pretty much every pattern benefits from commercially dyed yarn, but I am a well-known monster. So the Starflake starts at 66. You can always choose to add some luxury to your life and go all the way up to doing it in Bohemia Sport, which does require 4 balls in each color. They are $13 a piece. I'm going to do some quick math for you. So I think that comes out to 144, including the gist, but not including shipping. And the Starflanket, I'm chuckling a little bit because it takes a million balls of yarn.
Yeah.
Yes, the Starflanket, I want you to remember that you're going to get many hours of enjoyment out of knitting it. It is definitely a great experience. It can take anywhere from, sorry, I need to stop laughing at myself while I'm trying to say this. It can take anywhere from 15 balls of Bohemia worsted to 16 balls of Bohemia worsted at $26 each, but it's really, really worthwhile knitting. You will get so much love and enjoyment out of it. Or I believe that it ranges in and around 190 to 210 to do it in Little Bandit. Sorry, pardon me, Bandit DK.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is also an awesome, awesome choice. You will not regret it. Bandit is a great idea too for anybody who has small humans in their life or pets, or if you're one of those people that knows that you're going to spill on your rug as you're sitting eating something and watching TV. Bandit's a great choice because you can just chuck it into the wash and then spread it out flat to dry. So I do also love the idea of making one in Bandit.
So the pattern that you're wearing, the design you're wearing, what's that?
That's a very good question. I am apparently drawing a momentary blank. I may actually have to consult my Ravelry.
Stop.
I know, I knit a lot. It is by Veronique Avery. It's from the most recent Brooklyn Tweed collection.
Can you hear me tapping away there? I'm on my. I was just saying to Ethan before. I'm in my normal setup.
It is McCoy.
Oh, McCoy, well done. Well done.
It's McCoy. McCoy by Veronique Avery. It is a unisex high neck. I'm not going to lie to you. The high neck is part of the pattern. You knit it last, however. High neck colorwork yoke jumper. I did a 2-color version. You can incorporate 4 colors as well. It comes with 2 different charts with instructions of how to do that. And I knit mine in Bohemia worsted. My colors were nostalgia and parchment because
lovely.
It's pretty much squarely up the Ethan middle color-wise.
Right. Well, speaking of color and color work, I have finally because I won't lie. I mentioned a few weeks ago I lost my knitting mojo, and so I've been actually crocheting. I've been crocheting my scratch blanket, which I hadn't pulled out for ages, and the weather was very inclement here, so it was the perfect thing to do. So then I got all motivated over the weekend, and I have actually now cast on and started the Gold Wing. So for those who are new, who haven't caught up, this is what I'm knitting. Gold Wing by Jennifer Skeinz. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm doing mine in the reverse sort of format. She's got the lighter shade at the top with the deeper shade at the bottom. I've flipped mine around. I'm doing a gradient of Rainbow County at the top with just a plain oatmeal grey at the bottom. I have done my short rows. And actually, let's talk about short rows first, since we were talking Stephen West before. Now, she had in here German short rows.
Okay.
I hate German short rows. I don't like them.
That's okay.
It's a person. I know it's a personal thing. It's just, to me, they are overly complicated for
Yeah.
something that doesn't need to be that hard.
I have to say, German short row. If you are good at German short rows, and if you're one of those people at home, tell us your secrets. Although I'm lying because I am actually very good at German short rows.
I mean, you're good at everything, but
Um,
yeah,
well,
you try. I know you
I
try.
did
You
a
work very
lot.
hard at it.
A lot, guys. If you're good at German short rows are a great idea. However, you are completely correct. German short rows are, I would say, unnecessary because there is so much margin for error in a German short row. And they are very simple in theory to work, everyone. So if you're looking at a pattern and it has a German short row, all you're really doing is pulling the yarn back over the needle before you proceed to work the next stitch from the previous row for your working back to expose both legs of the previous stitch. Then in the pattern, there will be this absolutely incomprehensible explanation that you are to insert your needle through both legs and knit through both. Now, here's a good question for everyone. If you have just pulled a piece of yarn back over top, exposing both legs of a stitch from the row below, how many visible legs will there be when you come back to that? The answer is 4. There are 4 visible pieces there. And absolutely no obvious visual as to which ones attach where and which ones you're actually supposed to be knitting through. And moreover, there is an almost hilarious ease to go one row below unintentionally. Why? Because you've just pulled the previous row up over the back of the needle. So what you're actually trying to do is knit through the back of the stitch from the regular direction.
See, to me, I just look at it and I just think it's a totally overcomplicated yarn orgy that doesn't need to exist, to be honest. Legs flying everywhere and, you're having to put your needle and you're always putting it in the wrong place. I mean, hello. So I'm sorry, I looked at it and went, I'm ignoring that. So anyone else that's going to do this at home, feel free to rebel like me and not do a German short row. So I've just done a classic wrap and turn with knitting my wraps on the way back. Now, can you see those wraps in there? Can you?
No.
Can you see those? No.
What is wrong with it? Why have we all lost the joy of the wrap and turn short row?
It is simple. It is straightforward. I knitted those suckers up on the way back across. I mean, now, to be fair, I am knitting this in County. This is a lovely, grippy Velcro-esque yarn. It hides a multitude of sins. If you were knitting this on an incredibly smooth yarn, not so much. But I wouldn't be doing a piece of colour work like this in a really smooth yarn.
No, that's a bad idea.
It's not a good idea. So that's thing number one. So I have just done wrap and turn. So if you get to this, feel free that you do need to do that. So where I'm up to now,
moment of wrap and turn. Just a brief moment for everyone. If you haven't used wrap and turn short rows in a long time, you're literally making a yarn over on top of a stitch and coming back to pick it up later and just knitting it together or purling it together. It is by far the most foolproof method. And some people out there are going to try to sucker you into the Japanese shadow wrap method, which is a hybrid of a wrap and turn and a German short row. Don't do it. Don't. Under any circumstances, just read the pattern and go, yes, I shall wrap and turn instead.
Yeah, I mean, Daryl is doing. She's knitting right now, doing a wrap and turn. She doesn't mind German, and I mean that's just it, Daryl. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I've done them too, and I have, but I just looked at this and I thought, to be fair, potentially a certain amount of Chardonnay had been actually consumed at the time, and my can't be askedness quotient was a lot higher than what it usually would be if it was at coffee o'clock as opposed to Chardonnay o'clock.
Okay.
But I have to say, now that I've gone and done it and I've looked at it, if you if you love doing Japanese, I mean, this is just it. It's like anything. If you love doing those short rows and you're quite comfortable with them, fantastic. I've actually got someone close to me here in Hawke's Bay. She honestly has tried to do Tecumseh. I can't tell you how many times. And there's a German short row in there that has seriously done her head in to the point that she is completely frogged. She's just given up on it, put the whole thing in the naughty corner. And I said to her, stop persevering with this German short row. I know it's in the pattern, but it's a short row is a freaking short row. Just, wrap and turn it. And she was doing that portion in charcoal anyway, so you would never have seen it.
Then don't even worry about it.
Is prerequisite. This is called Warrapper Girl. Daryl will understand that. So it is one of those things. I mean, I know that there is a desire, and I see this, and you will see this a lot because your technique factor is very, very high. So for those who haven't watched Ethan a lot, Ethan has even Deb and I sit there going, yeah, his technical ability and acumen is top notch. You're right there.
What are you talking about?
But you love it. I know that you love it. It's got all of those, really, you get right into it and you adore it. I'm lazy, so I'll look at it and go, that's a clever so and so who's written this. They're very, very clever. I'm going to find a shortcut because that's me. So it's a horses for courses. So back to this. Well, I have done German short rows. So, which is where I'm up to now. So where I'm up to now is row 1 of the chart.
Woo!
So the other thing she has in here, and I've completely ignored that too, in the beginning, she has this very interesting increase. And I want to I haven't talked to Ethan about this ahead of time, but I know that he doesn't mind. She has this very interesting increase, which, again, I personally am like, okay. So it is called, now as she goes madly trying to find the abbreviations, or maybe it's sitting in here. Now, to be fair, she has actually supplied a link for the video on how to do this, and that would actually require me typing the link in longhand and actually doing it, and I've been too lazy to do that.
I'm wondering what this is.
Not exactly helping myself here. Hold on, I can't find it. Where's the legend? There's the legend. Right. She has this this increase, which she calls invisible increase left. Oh, why are you looking at me like that?
Okay, so I have to tell you, I'm actually a massive fan of the invisible increases.
Well, talk me through it, because I'm looking at this and I'm reading this word salad and I've tried doing it and I'm just like, what the fuck? So
no. It is by far the most confusing method until anyone at home what is going on with my hair? I'm going to stop touching it. Anyone at home who brioches, until you understand what's going on with the slip one yarn over, right?
Yeah.
Brioche is like word salad. So with the invisible increase left, it is a left-leaning increase that takes and makes 2 stitches out of 1 instead of making a stitch in between. Yes. So normally when we're increasing, if these are our 2 vertical stitches, we are basically pulling them apart, picking up the running thread in between, and making that into a new stitch, right?
All right. Yep. I'm dealing with you so far.
With the invisible increase, what we are doing is, if there is a stitch on the needle, boop, boop, then there is the stitch below it here, right?
All right. Yep.
What we are doing is, for the invisible increase left, which is the one that leans to the left, we are slipping the stitch on the needle. Then we are going in and picking up the stitch below. So you're picking up that stitch below, putting it onto the left needle, and then knitting it through the back loop.
Okay, hold on. Right, okay. Here we go. Live TV, people, don't try this at home. And I haven't got glasses on, so I can't see what I'm doing. Right, okay. So on the chart, it covers 2 stitches on the chart, which of course confuses me because I'm not good with charts at the best times. Right.
Yes.
So there we go. So we're slipping purlwise.
Slipping that stitch purlwise.
Right. Okay, I'm going to spin this around here. So then we've got the bit down the bottom here.
Yeah, you're going to pick up that leg of
Here,
the stitch.
and then knit through the back of the stitch.
Exactly.
So I'm only actually, so I'm slipping one and knitting the other.
Yes, exactly. And when you come back around,
Yep.
it will show 2 stitches beginning out of 1 stitch. Now, so someone has very helpfully dropped in that it is not actually invisible. And
Yep.
that is correct. It is, in darker yarns especially, normally quite invisible. However, it does a unique thing that no other increase does. So the big difference between it and, let's say, a knit front back,
Yes.
or a knit back front, which is the inverse,
Yes.
because one leans left, one leans right, or a make one left or make one right.
But also the knit front and back gives you that sort of little wrap around the front there. Yes, yeah.
Exactly. So here's the thing. With the invisible increase,
yes,
the reason it's referred to as invisible is not actually because you can't see it, but it's because it does not change the tension of the fabric. So when you do a make one left or right, you are actually picking up the running thread. Yeah, you're pulling the stitches on either side tighter to make this new central stitch.
Mhm.
I hope my hand gestures are vaguely helpful. If this looks like some sort of weird gang symbol, please don't report me.
No.
Just trying to talk about knitting.
Okay.
With the invisible increase, because you are picking up and then working into that stitch again, you're not actually pulling anything out of place.
Right. Yes.
So the tension remains the same. So especially when you're going into color work,
Yeah.
if you're knitting top down as well, you can end up with some distortion, specifically in the very first row of increases, because it's normally your most rapid row of increases compared to the total number of stitches.
Right.
The invisible increase helps to avoid that little tiny bit of puckering that you can sometimes get.
Okay, right. So Pauline is also, she's doing it as well. She said she did the increase that was suggested initially and then found it was invisible. Yep, changed to the knit one left, which is what I did in the first row of increasing, Pauline, before we got to the colour portion. I did a make one left. And from that point, she thinks it looked much better. So this is my next question then. If I were to do, going back to the make one left and lifting the one up in between our little friends here, on the chart, that's what it looks like. Oh, there we go. We can see. Can you see it on the bottom there? It's rows 5 and 6 on the chart. So that's sitting across 2 stitches. But is that, so am I making, if I'm doing a make one left, am I making the one left in between those 2? Because then when you see, moving forward, there's only 2 stitches in subsequent rounds above it. So therefore, does that actually represent 1 stitch or 2 stitches?
So if you're converting this to a make one left, you work the first visible stitch that has the V in that chart as normal, and then you do the make one left where it is using the actual symbol for a lifted increase.
Right.
So the so someone just mentioned, is it the same as a lifted increase? It is extremely similar to a lifted increase. And so you're not really going to see much of a difference. Now, with all of these different increases, it depends a lot on the knitter's tension. So different increases work better for different tension knitters. If you are a very even tensioned knitter, meaning not too tight, not too loose, then the lifted or invisible increases are almost identical to the rest of the fabric. If you are a looser knitter, however, you may benefit from a make one as your increase, as it actually slightly increases the tension on the 2 other stitches, making that make one invisible. If you're a slightly tight knitter, the knit front back actually tends to work out the best because the tightness of the stitches hides that little inconsistency of the nublet or purl, basically, that's created. And there's a lot of different ways to deploy all of these different increases, and there's a lot of different tricks to them. But for the most part, I tend to use a mixture of all of the different increases, which might seem a little wacky, but it really just depends on what I'm doing. So for example, I have just finished the first sample of my new jumper pattern, and I'm about to start testing a second size myself before I release it to other human beings. And I am using the invisible increase in that pattern because it is abutting directly up against a seam. And I don't want there to be an adjustment in the tension, so that when you're seaming along the bottom edge of a sleeve, this is seamless, everyone. I'm not that good at seaming. When you're seaming along the bottom edge of the sleeve, you don't have that little bit of puckering up the bottom that can occur. So it really depends on what you're doing. If you're someone who is wondering about any of this and you're sitting at home going, what are these people talking about? What's going on with it? If you're really intense like I am, you can actually swatch your increases. When you're doing your swatch for the fabric of the garment that you're going to make, it is actually worthwhile to go ahead and swatch with the increases on both edges. It's going to make your swatch more of a funnel shape, but if you're increasing on the edges, it doesn't really matter. And that way you will get a better idea of which increase is going to work best for you. So what I normally suggest is over 4 rows, do one increase style, do the make ones on either side, see how that looks, work 4 more rows, do the invisible increases, see how that looks. And then you're going to get a better idea of what's going to work well with your tension. When you're working from a chart, the different ways that people create increases looks very different, especially depending on the charting software and how they are using the negative space, right? So in a lot of Jennifer Steingrass patterns, she uses X's on the negative box instead of just grayed out. I actually think it's a little visually confusing. I think if you just have those squares grayed out so that they're just blank underneath, it's a lot clearer when you're showing the increase. And I don't love the showing the new stitch, because what she's doing, right, is she's instructing you to slip the one stitch with the V-shaped mark and then to actually work the increase with the next one. But really, all you need in that increase row is the increase symbol.
Yes.
Because it makes it look like you should be doing something with 2
because
stitches.
So this was my next component, because so everybody, me and charts have a very checkered history. Okay, so I'm funny with charts. When it comes
to checkered history with a chart,
a checkered history, I know, ka-ching. Cable charts, good as gold. Colorwork charts, I don't know what it is. It's a me thing. So yeah. So the one thing that I couldn't figure out, because she had 6 stitches worked across in the colorwork on the first round, and then the subsequent rounds 2 and 3, there were still 6 stitches. And I'm thinking, but if there's an increase in the first round, surely there should only be 5 stitches, and therefore, because you've increased in the repeat, so therefore there'll be a 6th. And of course, because the way she's written the instructions. So
yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I know that I'm having a moment, but I figured Ethan will know. I'm going to save this for Ethan.
So the reason that she is doing this is because and this is a really weird thing, but I've heard this from other designers. There are basically 3 schools of thought of how you approach design, right? So there are people who design on the needles, which I don't do. There are people who kind of use similar stitch counts and stitch patterns. They work out their gauge for certain things, and then they just create new patterns off of it, right? And then there are people who knit a swatch, draw a schematic, do a bunch of math, and then they test their garment from their own instructions.
Right. And you would be in the last camp?
I'm definitely in the last camp. And I'm a big proponent of that idea, because what you see oftentimes with designers that are very comfortable is what she's showing is that at the end of that round, you will have 6 stitches for each repeat. And I just think that's a very confusing way. Now, just briefly, everyone, if you are like Marie and you struggle with colorwork charts but not cable charts, there is a reason for all of you. I know. The reason is simple, but very weird. When you look at a cable chart versus the piece of fabric, they are exactly identical.
Yes.
A colorwork chart, often, especially with these top-down yokes, because I'm going to make Yeah, it is slowly gaining stitches and spreading, but it does not necessarily stack vertically. It actually stacks horizontally and helically, which is a really gross word that describes the fact that circular knitting is not stacked rows, it's a never ending spiral. So it actually means that you don't see what you're seeing on the chart exactly on the fabric that you're
Represented
making.
on the fabric. Yeah, that would make perfect sense. Yeah.
However, I bet you that if you're making a pair of colorwork mittens that have a static number of stitches from bottom to top and then an even set of decreases on both sides, that you have a lot less problem with the colorwork chart.
Well, and see, and I did the last charted piece of work that I did was the Kiwi hat from Charles Gandy, which was these beautiful, I know I've shown it here a few times, it's beautiful traveling stitches, single stitches, just gorgeous. And I had no issues, but I tell you the one thing, Charles, the little hint that he gave me, and he put it in his pattern, and I'm actually going to do it with this. It's not written in the pattern, but it is something that I'm going to do, is he actually just got little removable markers, and he placed the markers all the way around to delineate, yeah, the repeats. And actually I kind of like that, because it means that when you're doing the color work that you're breaking it down into just like little bite-sized pieces. And I mean, yes, I know that it means that in the first round I'll be placing these markers every 6 stitches, but it doesn't matter, because as it grows it means that I'll see, as you said, each one of those wedges, because they're not stacked up, each one of those wedges as they go. Now, the other interesting instruction she has in here, and I know for me, because I don't, with color work, I don't hold my strands in both fingers like you do. She said switched, she talks about begin chart with main color to the left and contrast color to the right, your color dominance, and then switch the other way around. So I'm assuming she's talking about where you hold it, how you're holding your yarn. Is that right?
Yes. So the yarn that you hold in your left hand, this is my left hand, everyone, will strand below and be the dominant or motif color, where the yarn that you hold in your right hand will strand above consistently and will be the background color. So when you are establishing, some people do actually like to play with color dominance in their charts and will include instructions like that. So all she is saying is that you want your left-handed color to be the one that if you're not holding it in both hands, it is the one that you consistently keep below, where you pull the other one above when you're moving it over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the nice part is, like, I will say, I do think Jennifer's a very talented person. I do find her patterns a wee bit repetitive.
I quite like repetitive. Repetitive's good for me.
No. And I am a big believer that it takes many kinds of designers to keep the world going round. Everybody should find their niche and do their thing. And she has definitely found a niche with these long, slender, elegant, I want to describe them as ethereal almost, shaping pieces that she does in all of her color work. When you look at a Jennifer Steingrass pattern, you know it's a Jennifer Steingrass pattern. Her DNA, her fingerprint is really
yeah.
And I mean, we've talked in the past that we both have definitely favorite designers and designers that we tend to cycle back to time and time again. It's a little bit like a first boyfriend. But, you know, it is definitely about finding the style of both a knit and a knitwear designer that works for you. Like, there are some that will just never function for Ethan because I don't look great in a top-down sweater. These are facts. And there's a lot of people who only do that. So, you know, it's interesting to kind of do that whole experimental phase and find what's really going to work for you.
And again, like for me, so Rambler was the first top-down color work that I'd ever done. I mean, I'd always bottom up, and I mean, I've even steeked stuff, you know. I mean, I've been quite a traditionalist like that. But with this, like what I'm quite intrigued to with this, and I was thinking about this the other night, I'm going to do what I did with Rambler. And the only reason, guys, I haven't worn my Rambler for you today, I actually wore it in a video. I think the last video I did with Barb from the Kiwi Family Trust, loving it, adoring it, but it's 20 degrees in Hawke's Bay today. It's unseasonably warm, so too warm for that. However, what I did do is if you remember, I created an A-line in there. So I finished the yoking and then I actually started some shaping. I actually did the shaping a little bit further down. It looks great. I think with this, because she does have quite a slender shaping on this, I'm going to do the yoke. So I've done it to fit upper bust, and I'm going to make sure I maintain that, but I am actually going to start shaping wedges more aggressively from the underarm portion on either side, so I can get that kind of A-line, because that's what I feel more comfortable with, and I think it will actually work quite well for this. I think it'll, and I'm really quite keen to do tunic length on this as well. I think the tunic length,
I think the tunic length is way more you.
Yeah, definitely more me. So
sure.
That's just a me thing. George is saying George, they're saying they're knitting hinterland at the moment. It's easy to follow. Yeah, and I think this is honestly, George, I think it's a me thing. I'm just, different designers have, and Ethan is a tech editor, so we've talked about this before.
Yes.
When you have favorite designers you cycle back to all the time, you get used to the editing that they use. And there are little nuances, and it's just getting what you're used to. Wendy is what yarn in the new jumper pattern design? Now see, Wendy, that's secrets. Wendy's asking for secrets.
Yeah.
Ethan shared a photo with me. Is that the photo you shared with me, or is that a different test knit, the one that you shared to me the other day?
Oh no, that is a test knit for a very good friend of mine from France that I completed. I also I tech edited and test knit the pattern, which is a really questionable life choice, it turns out.
Amazing. I feel like we shouldn't talk about it. It's like sort of handing over a bag of candy, but not actually giving it to them.
Well, they will be able to see it, and possibly me, on a publication in the future. That's the biggest hint I'm going to give about it.
So beautiful. It is just.
Thank you.
Delene is saying she's doing ranunculus at the moment as a tunic. Actually, ranunculus and a tunic, D. Actually, you know what? Ranunculus, because we did the ranunculus at the shop in Pearl Luster, and I know you've been playing around with that.
I have been playing around with the Pearl Luster.
Yeah, and that, I love layering, and I'm a big fan of layering. I think layering is a big girl's friend. It allows you, and also when you live in a climate like we do here, it allows you to shed layers, and every Kiwi knows that we're 4 seasons in one day. So the whole key to surviving the weather in New Zealand is layering. So I love it. And actually doing ranunculus as a tunic would be, really fantastic, because then you could have multiple layers and create different.
Totally.
I think that's actually,
Speaking of Pearl Luster and layering, there might actually be sometime in December a forthcoming twin set pattern in Pearl Luster. I know you remain unsurprised by this news, but I got my hands on it and swatched it and immediately was like, ooh, I know.
We're not, but so often we talk, obviously, guys, I talk to Deborah and Ethan all the time, but we were talking about yarns. We were having a great, we spend a lot of time brainstorming, do we not? And I said to these guys, I said, look, I've got to send you down some Pearl Luster. We were talking about summer yarns, and Pearl Luster, for those who haven't knit it is a Surrey alpaca. I know, it's amazing. And Surrey alpaca, so for those, we usually use, when we do an alpaca yarn, we usually use Hakaya alpaca. So Hakaya alpacas are those alpacas that you're usually used to seeing. They're the lovely, big, squishy, downy ones, and they are just wonderful. Whereas the Surrey alpacas have got those wonderful locks, that beautiful locky fibre, very much akin to a mohair, So it's the fibre with Surrey is quite different, and and part of the reason we called it Pearl Luster is there's a lustrousness with the Surrey that you don't necessarily get with the Hakaya. So we were able to get a supply of Surrey alpaca. It's beautiful Surrey alpaca, and so we created Pearl Luster, and because of the nature of the alpaca, we've done it in a fine 3-ply sort of
Mhm.
lace weight yarn, and we've done it in a range. We're actually increasing the color range in that. So if and when we get to it, because we're so slim with every day at the minute at the mill, but we are with the colors have been logged in. And we've got the shades are very subtle and very gentle, and we did that because a lot of people use 3-plies to knit baby singlets and things, and they want very soft pastel shades. But the yarn itself, when ranunculus came out, actually used that very fine. And
Yes.
what I love about it is that it's got this beautiful fineness. There's a slight sort of glow with it when
Yeah.
you knit it. It's got a lovely luster, and it only ever intended when we spun it. We only spun a very small amount of it, and the intention was it was only ever going to run one cycle. But it has been so popular; people have loved it so much, and we've been able to keep the supply going. We've done some more. So yeah, I just pearl luster is actually starting to find its way in the heart of a lot of knitters, which I'm really pleased about actually.
I love the idea of it for garments.
Yeah.
It's great because it stands up on a bigger needle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which finding a fine yarn that really does that beautiful work on a big needle can be tricky. I am a pretty big Surrey alpaca fan. I might have made an entire lace weight shawl in 100% King Surrey alpaca last year.
Lovely.
Yeah, I am a big fan of Vera Valimaki shawls. If any of you don't know her, Vera kind of started the big shawl revolution with a pattern called Color Affection, and she's really great at incorporating garter stitch and lace together is probably her big thing. She kind of led to the whole movement from designers like Amba O'Brien, who does a lot of that sort of inset lace with garter
Mm,
stripes.
mm.
That's actually a Vera Valimaki original idea in sort of process that really brought it up. But yeah, I'm also now firmly on the Pearl Luster bandwagon.
Yeah, I knew you would love it. I absolutely knew you would love it. I mean, I adore it. It's
I
just
am a fine yarn junkie though. Like I have a serious problem. I own just a very upsetting amount of lace weight, including some. I do have a shawl in 100% um, naturally treated and naturally dyed cashmere that was hand harvested in Tajikistan that I made with about yeah, with about 135 grams of lace weight in it. So
you know what? That's as I said, it's like my tourist stuff. Sometimes every yarn tells a story. Now Jeanette's asking, what are the new colours? That'd be telling, Jeanette. But I can let you in on a secret that they have been designed to hopefully also correspond with the new fine kid mohair that is also in the works as well. So there you go. I was so hoping that we would have all of this stuff out for the current winter season, and I've been to the mill this morning. I don't know whether that's going to happen because obviously everything has been put back with lockdown.
yes.
But the good news is the Busky Mum bus was loaded up with cartons, and for those that have been waiting for Merino Soft, hopefully I will get a notice from Claire later today. I bought in I think 3 or 4 shades of Merino Soft. I dropped back to
Woo!
the house this morning, so those hopefully will be loaded and live online today. And actually, while I'm talking about that, before I forget, housekeeping should have done it at the beginning. Yes, you may also notice that the price increase because the first I realized was on the long weekend and everybody was having so much fun with Big Bull Bonanza. Last thing I wanted to do was throw a price increase in the middle of it because that would just be like crass, really, wouldn't it? So I did it yesterday. So yes, it's 3 days late, but we wanted to get through the weekend. So and that is the price increase that was supposed to happen on the 1st of April. It has now happened. So that's across Orb, Merino Soft, Vintage, Perrindale and Chatswood. I mean, the good news on that is we've pretty much got hardly any stock of nearly all of those. So it is going to be on the new stocks coming through, but also catching up with the team today. They are just going hammer and tongs to get everything out. Oh, I tell you the other thing I did this morning as well is Lodge. I mentioned with Lodge several videos ago.
Mm-hmm.
that we'd run out of the NEP, which is the fleck, the 20 fleck for that. And the supply that we had, it wouldn't come back in the same way it has again. However, we have found another supplier, and I picked out a new NEP today, and it is not exactly like what we had before. There's not quite as much brown, but it is still natural tones. So it still means that we can have a wonderful tweedy yarn, 10-ply yarn.
Yay!
Yeah, so Peter was putting the order that's coming from Italy. So yes, so I'm very happy about that.
Good.
Yes, which is a good thing. But it does mean that that new lodge won't be in probably until September, October. But that's okay. It's all right. The year's going to disappear before we know it. So
yeah, we're going to have lots to entertain you with from Outlaw and Skeinz. Don't worry.
We are. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up there. Now, Ethan and I are going to do this once a month. Now, I'm going to make the first Thursday of the month Ethan month. However, next month, the first Thursday is the first week of the school holidays, and I am going to be off doing school holiday things. So we will the second week next month, but we will go back to doing first Thursday of the month, I think, is Ethan month. Lynn just quickly is asking, what yarn are you using for your Goldwing? Lynn, just as a recap, I'm using County, which obviously is not a Skeinz yarn. I get this from actually Yarns with a Z in Wellington, which is Danish. County's Danish, isn't it? Danish. Yes.
I think so.
Yeah, Danish yarn. And Outlaw, Southlander, I was going to say Outlander. Southlander, wishful thinking. Southlander Sport is what I'm doing mine in. All right, enough of all of that.
And I, as usual, everyone, am knitting pretty much everything in Bohemia worsted because I am a well-known monster.
Yes, and just to recap again for I'll see you later, Becky. You have a good knit night. Becky's going to have knit night.
Bye, Becky.
Bye, Becky. To recap, Ethan's sweater is McCoy by, was it Veronique Avery?
Veronique Avery for Brooklyn Tweed's last collection. It works up perfectly to gauge. You don't have to change anything in the Bohemia worsted. And it is essential if you live on the South Island to have a Bohemia worsted jumper to survive the winter.
Absolutely. So on that note, thank you very much again. I'm now going to look forward to getting plenty of knitting done this afternoon, and I will see everyone here again next Thursday, and keep an eye out for the newsletters. I'll be putting out a restocking statement very soon. So until then, take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.